Welcome to Bookman's Corner. I'm Lois Lindstrom. My guest today is author Vicky Moon, who's written several books, but today we're going to talk about her book on Jackie Kennedy Onassis, and it's called The Private Passion of Jackie Kennedy Onassis, Portrait of a Writer. And Vicky, you live part of the time in Middleburg, Virginia, although you're a resident of Fort Lauderdale. And you know and have written many articles about the equestrian scene there. And this book is so interesting that you have such great research and pictures, and you know the trainers. And so I was just curious, how did you start this book? What was your first step?
Well, the book was a natural progression, Lois.
Okay.
I had previously done a book on Middleburg, Virginia, the Middleburg Mystique.
Okay.
And in doing that book and talking about the many great stories, characters, or whatever in Middleburg, of course, the Kennedys had spent weekends in Middleburg, and
Right.
Jackie Kennedy was frequently there. And in going through all the photos, I discovered that there were so many photographs of Jackie on horseback that had really never...
The public hadn't seen it.
The
right?
public, beyond, the very small local papers,
Right.
had not seen her on horseback.
Right. I couldn't
had
get
hundreds.
over how many pictures are in this book. I mean, with Jackie on horses, her children on horses, all kinds of celebrities on horses. It's really, how were you able to get the rights for all those pictures?
Well, I probably had 400 or 500 photos.
Wow.
But of course, edited down to a little more than 100 or
Okay.
150 photographs. And I started with the local photographers, the people who just photographed horses and fox hunts and horse shows.
Sure.
And it went from there. Of course, some of them came from the Kennedy Library, some of them came from the Library of Congress,
Okay.
some of them came from Long Island, the Historical Society there where she grew up, and from her horseback riding friends.
Great, great. Well, when did Jackie first start riding? It was at a very early age, wasn't it?
She started riding about age 2 or 3.
Wow.
Because her mother was an equestrian. And
Okay.
they, as I said, she grew up in Long Island in Southampton.
Right.
And her mother was a big fox hunter and rode in the horse shows. And, there are photographs in the book of Jackie just with her first blue ribbon, age,
6 or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I thought. It was amazing. The child shots in this book are amazing. And of course, then she was sent away to boarding school as a teenager, and I think she was really wishing she had her horse with her, right? She was writing back and saying, "How can I get my horse?" Or
She wrote a letter home and just literally begged, please, send me my horse to school. And of course, her letter paid off, and
They did,
yeah,
huh?
they sent her horse
Right.
to school. So the point here of the entire book is that this woman has been written about left and right and up and down, and it didn't seem that there could be another story. But this
Exactly.
is really the unknown, very, very private side of her life, with many of these photos that had never been seen. But beyond that, I don't think that the public understood what the horses and the ponies meant to her throughout her life,
Right.
from age 2 until her...
Well, actually, it was very therapeutic because she did have such an emotionally charged life from the very beginning. Her parents didn't get along. It was a very hostile relationship, and there was a divorce, which back in the 40s was unheard of. For women to be divorced so easily. And what don't have you talk about that in this book, which I didn't know before. Her
This was her refuge. If things were not going right in the main house, even back in Southampton, little Jackie would, run to the barn to her pony named Buddy and spend hours and hours, not just riding him, but brushing him, playing with him. And, that was her friend, and that was her way to, get away from it all.
Right.
And the same, throughout school.
Right, and then of course after she married, moved to the White House, and had the children, she started taking them to Middleburg, right?
Well, Jackie had actually gone to Middleburg well before then, even maybe probably before she was a teenager, after her parents were divorced and her mother remarried to Auchincloss, whose place was not far away in McLean. Jackie would go fox hunting out to Middleburg.
Even as a young adult, right?
As a young adult, some of the people that she met then remained her friends until the
end of her life, right?
The end of her life.
Interesting.
And then fun side story is when she had her job as the inquiring photographer here in Washington, she did one of her columns out in Middleburg photographing people and asking them about their horses and the fox hunting and things like that. Many of those 5 people, I think 3, are still alive today.
Right. Well, that equestrian style, I think she really brought to the forefront. For instance, she was close friends with the designer Ole Cassini, and
they definitely shared a love of horses,
right?
And talked about it frequently. There was one time when she was first lady and going to Canada to visit, she had him design a suit for her in the scarlet colors to match the Canadian Mounted Police.
Wow.
But he understood, the significance of the event better than anybody else. And when one of his beloved horses died, she wrote him a note, and he was great. I interviewed him for the book, and he, at the time, was still alive and invited me to come go riding on Long Island. And, he rode also till he died.
And now let's talk about her official life as the wife of the president. Here she is off riding horses in Middleburg. What about the Secret Service? Are they riding horses behind her?
Well,
are they keeping up?
They tried. They tried, but they could not.
Really?
And that did not work out at all. But, I just don't think that if anybody had any notion of harm, they couldn't have found found her in the woods.
Right. Well, they found someone at the National Park Service. An equestrian from the National Park Service, apparently.
Oh, Dennis Ayers, yes.
Part of the hunt party, right? Make sure he kept his eyes on her.
Yeah.
But of course, given how the situation is so much more delicate today, I don't know if a first lady could be on a horse. What do you think?
Yes, I think
it can be
definitely
done.
Marilyn Quayle went fox hunting out in Middleburg, and it was sort of the same story. In fact, I'm not so sure that the very same person didn't go along with her.
Okay.
The ones who can ride are limited.
That's right. They find someone to follow the rider, right?
Yeah.
Now, what about the? She also, of course, was traveling extensively in Europe, and she was given in the book. I thought it was very interesting. She was given a horse by the president of Pakistan, and this was a trip she had taken without President Kennedy, and she had to convey to him that, well, I've got a gift coming to me. To the White House.
Among the many pieces that I got from the Kennedy Library and the National Archives, there was a wonderful telegram that she had sent to the president. This horse is being shipped back to me, I think, along with some tiger cubs, and could you please expedite it, because I don't want my dear horse, to be in quarantine too long. But on top of that, the people who were working in the White House were constantly trying to play down her equestrian lifestyle, because it was so
politically incorrect, right?
Not politically incorrect, but it was perceived as elitist.
Okay, and that could have some political problems,
right?
For the president.
Yeah, and now the horse, I might add, from Pakistan was not the only gift. Okay. They received a pony from Ireland. They received rabbits as the gift. I mean, the animals, just kept pouring in.
Well, wasn't there a horse on the White House grounds? I mean, a pony?
That was definitely, that was a wonderful little pony named Macaroni that was purchased out in Middleburg for Caroline.
Really?
And Monday through Friday, Macaroni would live on the White House lawn. People would come by and try to feed him through the fence. And, Caroline, there are fabulous photos in the book. The president would come right out of the Oval Office, and Macaroni would be standing right there. And
well, how tall was
Caroline?
Macaroni?
Nothing. Just a little fat pony.
A little fat pony.
A little fat pony, very well known pony, and a cute little story of the day that Jackie caught Caroline painting Macaroni's hooves with red nail polish.
Oh no, that's very cute. Very cute. And actually, the people visiting the White House could see the little pony.
They could see the little pony. They were wonderful photos.
Yes,
Macaroni.
Yes.
Then on the weekend, Macaroni would go to Middleburg.
I see. That's good. Get a little fresh air out there and to run around. And what's also, I think, fantastic is that she did travel. She did, when she was traveling, she did ride wherever she traveled, right?
Absolutely. Any chance that she would get, in France, she went riding in France. When she went to Vienna, she, of course, went to see the Lipizzaner stallions there. In Spain, she went riding. Later on, when she married Onassis, he built a stable for her. I don't think that she was that wild about it, but the horses were a part of her life from absolutely infancy until death.
Well, that's wonderful, Vicky. So intrigued with your research and your photographs, and when we left off, we were talking about Jackie with her children on the White House grounds and the pony, Macaroni, and then she would go to Middleburg on the weekends when they were in the White House. And also, I mean, you living in Middleburg, you at one point had an equestrian shop there, didn't you? Because I know Jackie did shop quite frequently in Middleburg, didn't she?
She shopped, I think, mostly out of some sort of loyalty to all the shop owners. But this little town, which many know is an hour west of Washington, is a very sleepy little 4-block village. And to a certain degree, she had some anonymity in that people didn't bother her, and she could go from shop to shop. But I do remember distinctly on one November 22nd that she was there. It was rainy, and she was going around shopping for Christmas, and she came into my shop to buy Christmas ornaments. And of course, when the woman who was working for me went to write the little charge slip out, she looked at the date, and she looked up at Jackie, and she grabbed Jackie's hand, and she said, I'm so sorry. And Jackie was very nice. She said, I just wanted to spend the day alone.
Right. And of course, that's one of the things you write in this book, that she loved going to Middleburg because it was a wonderful way for her to be with people in a natural setting.
Right, and share that love. And there's a wonderful story about when she first started to come out there when he was in the White House and ride, and someone unknowingly said, well, what does your husband do? And she simply said, he's in the government.
Oh, wow. Well, what did Jack do when they were in Middleburg? I mean, didn't he?
He would frequently, she would come earlier in the weekend in the car with the kids, and he would come by helicopter out to Middleburg.
Did he hit golf?
He would just practice hitting golf balls. He would ride around the countryside, in a convertible, and occasionally show up to a horse event. But he was allergic to animal fur, and so that limited his interaction with any animal.
Okay. I didn't realize he was allergic to animal fur. That's interesting. Wow. We have so many details in this book. For one thing, you mentioned the parties that Jackie and Jack hosted, the black tie dinner party at the White House for a big horse show, and the guest included Alice Roosevelt Longworth, who is a well-known socialite and eldest daughter of Theodore Roosevelt. And Tell us about that.
Well, the Washington International Horse Show back in those days was held at the D.C. Armory next to the old football stadium here. And so they had a dinner party for people who semi-shared their interest in horses, and then they went on to the horse show. And it was because of Jackie Kennedy that the horse show initiated their grand finale competition, to this day called the President's Cup. And
really?
you know, she was on hand to present the trophy to the winner, and since then the President's Cup continues each October.
Interesting. And also I found it interesting that she continued to ride competitively in horse events throughout her life in the White House and beyond, when she married to Jackie.
She rode in all types. So she, of course, loved to go fox hunting. That was definitely her
favorite.
First love is to go, and she would be among the few left at the end of the day while out hunting. But in addition to that, she went in horse shows, of course. That started when she was with her mother in the family class, and later on with her children. And then she would ride competitively in cross-country events that are sort of keyed into hunting.
Now, did you meet some of her trainers, her instructors, her riding instructors?
I did. I know one of her instructors very well, a man named Snowden Clark, who was in Middleburg for years and is now in California. But he gave such a wonderful insight to Jackie and her outlook, because, you know, anybody who rides horses, it's there are issues that come up, and you know, it's always, you know, as the rider wants to blame the horse, you know, this blankety blank horse is doing something wrong. And Jackie's question to her trainer Snowden Clark is, what am I doing wrong? That what can I change so that the horse, you know, will do better?
Right.
And that just really is a beautiful insight into her outlook with the horses.
Exactly, the love of animals. The other thing I was interested in was the fact that when Jackie did go riding, she did have some accidents, right? I mean, you know,
she had one very well publicized fall off her horse while he was president, and it's a debate to this day whether or not the photographer who was standing next to the fence spooked the horse. The horse stopped, and she went, you know, with her white gloves off.
And that's in this book.
It's in this book. And was the most expensive photograph in the book. Fell off, hands first, over the fence. Okay, she was unhurt. And of course, the photographer saw a cash cow that day and went straight to the phone booth to sell it to Life or Look or whatever it was. And meanwhile, Jackie is calling back to the White House, begging the president to stop the publication of the photo, to which he replies, I am so sorry, but when the first lady falls on her, you know what, that's news. And that is, to this day, is one of the best known photographs.
Yes, yes. And for me, it was really surprising to know that she did have some falls along the way. I mean, but she got right back up. I mean, she
of course,
she was really an incredible trooper.
And you know what? She could horseback ride. She wasn't just a pretty lady on a horse.
Right.
She really could ride, and she knew what it was all about.
I totally agree. And now, what her last horse was a horse named Midnight. Is that horse still alive?
You know, I'm not sure about Midnight, but many of her horses survived her, and they all went to very good homes. One of them, her gray horse, lived the rest of his life out in Upperville, not far from Middleburg, at the Mellon's estate. And as you know, that Paul Mellon was also a fellow equestrian, and Bunny Mellon, just a horticultural expert, you know, designed the rose garden for him, designed the grave, and kept her horses there until they.
And of course, when she was, of course, riding in the 80s and 90s and early 90s, and then she had the big major fall, and then they took her to the hospital. Right
on the it was in, I think, November of '93. She was out hunting in Middleburg, and she took a spill, as many people do.
Sure.
And they took her to the hospital, and it was a routine blood test in the emergency room, which revealed that there was something dramatically wrong. And of course, then after that, she was diagnosed with the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Right.
And throughout it, she continued to ride, after she had chemo. And of course, she spent part of the year in New Jersey, and she had horses up there. But her trainer in New Jersey told me how she came out, with her wig and tried to get her helmet on.
She was still riding?
She was still riding as long as she could until the very end.
And she didn't
loved
really,
her
after
horses.
She was diagnosed, it was only like 6 months later that she died. It was really quick.
She was there. She was always there. She rode, and she came to visit her horses. They meant so much to her.
Well, I know you've written several equestrian style type books, and you have one coming out.
I do.
Really, what
in July? I have a book.
Tell us about that book.
That is called Equestrian Style, and it's to be published by Clarkson Potter / Random House, and went all over the country, from New York, Saratoga, Keeneland, Ocala, Los Angeles, into the homes and the stables, and photographing the art, architecture, antiques, the jewelry that are just the iconic images of the equestrian lifestyle.
Wow. And what stage did you find the strongest equestrian
You know what?
theme?
It crosses... crosses everywhere, like, as you know, because we're both from Fort Lauderdale. We have friends, in a high-rise condo that if you look around the room there, you would think that maybe you're in Virginia or Kentucky. And in Los Angeles, I did inside the home of a party planner, an event planner, Virginia Fowd, who does the parties for Elton John's Oscar party, and she is a Virginia native, and you would know inside her home, which is just steps away, from the hustle and bustle of LA, equestrian style.
It
endures.
It just endures, and it is so homey and beautiful and elegant.
Very British inspired.
It is very British inspired, isn't it? Well, it's interesting enough, in reading your book, I realized that George Washington rode horses and was involved in one of your books in a hunt and activity, and so
his passion was well documented, and the same for many other presidents.
Yeah. So the next thing would be that you are. What do you think was your favorite chapter of this book that you felt you really enjoyed writing the most?
I don't know about favorite chapter, but there is a photograph in here when Jackie was in the horse show in Long Island, and the costume class where everyone dresses up. Jackie was in Indian, little like Pocahontas or something like that. And there are two other people in there, and one of them is dressed as a scarecrow.
Okay.
And in searching out the photos and things like that, I, on a lark, called the tack shop in Long Island, and I said, does anybody know someone who used to know Jackie way back when? And they said, oh yes, you have to call Fanny Gardner. And I flew up to Long Island to interview Fanny Gardner, who at the time was probably in her 80s, and said to me, oh, I remember when I was in the costume class with Jackie, and I was the scarecrow, and I wore my brother's tailcoat turned inside out.
What a great story.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being here with us today. And I hope everyone will have a chance to read The Private Passion of Jackie Kennedy Onassis.
Thank you.
And where could they find that?
You can find that on my website,
which is
VickyMoon.com.
Okay, or Amazon.com.
And Amazon.com.
Okay, well, I hope people will do that. And thank you for being with us, and welcome to our next edition of Bookman's Corner.